It is my honor and privilege to introduce to you probably one of the world experts in Jewish sources relating to the land of Israel and the Geula. It's probably true, right? See? It's amazing.
Maybe in the English language.
So it's a really, really special opportunity. You guys should know you're really hearing about one of the most important topics in the world from really someone who is really one of the experts and most really dedicated his life towards working on texts, some of the most powerful, inspiring, and relevant texts to understanding Eretz Yisrael in our generation. I highly recommend all the books that are on this table. I have almost every single one that's here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6. So they're highly recommended, and they'll be available for purchase at very discounted prices afterwards, and I definitely recommend adding them to your library. I want to thank Rabbi Lichtman for joining us once again. It's a very privilege to have him, and everyone should enjoy the shiur.
So, as I'm sure you all know, this coming Friday, Thursday night, Friday, is Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, right? The day in the Six-Day War that we conquered Jerusalem, and that's why this yeshiva exists. I mean, it wouldn't exist if not for the Six-Day War. So you have an extra special reason to thank Hashem for this. But I want to talk more on a global level. The events of that time, 55, 56 years ago, what was it? Because, I mean, seemingly, most people would assume that it was very miraculous events. But there are some who don't think that, and the question is why, and what are the different opinions? So I want to start, I think you were giving out some source sheets. So the first source on the page is Rabbi Lichtman, the Book of Our Heritage. For those of you who don't know who Rabbi Lichtman was, he was a great Rav, educator, tremendous Talmud Chacham. He's most famous for this book, the Book of Our Heritage, in Hebrew, Sefer HaToda'ah, where he goes through the entire Jewish calendar, and he just brings everything there is to know about every holiday in the Jewish calendar, and also sad days. But he also has another sefer, just to show his godless, on the Parsha, and it's 10 volumes. I remember I bought it many years ago. It's 10 volumes where he just goes on, brings midrashim and shots according to the different Rishonim and Achronim on every pasuk in the Chumash. It's really an amazing work. So he was a tremendous Talmud Chacham. And as I said, the Book of Our Heritage is actually a book on the Jewish calendar. Now, if you take the Hebrew edition, Sefer HaToda'ah, you will not find anything under the 5th of Iyar or the 28th of Iyar. You will find nothing, or at least nothing relating to recent historical events. 1948 and 1967. It doesn't say a word about it. But in the English edition, this is a quote from the English edition. He does speak about both of those days. And let me tell you right from the start, he was not a Zionist in the typical sense. He did not say Yom Ha'atzmaut was the most amazing day in the world, Yom Yerushalayim was the most amazing. He didn't say that. But he did say that we can't be ungrateful to Hashem for the miracles that he has given us. And if you want to know why it's not in the Hebrew edition, it's a shiur in and of itself. He wrote a whole letter about it, explaining. Basically, it was business purposes. He was told, he was recommended to him that he shouldn't put it in the Hebrew edition, or else no one would buy the book. So he says he laments that he didn't put it in, and he folded to the pressure that he shouldn't put it in because of what certain communities will think, and therefore not buy the book. But this is his opinion. In other words, the English edition has what he did write in Hebrew on those 2 days. He just didn't put it into the Hebrew edition. He writes, on the 26th of Iyar, which is 2 days before Yom Yerushalayim, right, when the war started, there had stood surrounding the borders of Israel all the armies of Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq, which then had nearly 200,000 troops supplied by Russia with an arsenal of mighty weapons. In the ears of the whole world, they arrogantly declared, "We are set upon destroying the Jewish state and murdering all its inhabitants. They will have no escape." You see, they weren't politically correct. They didn't say, "No, we want peace. No, we want to kill. We want to murder every single Jew." They were not afraid to say it. Just like some countries today wouldn't say that. Certain terrorist groups, of course, do say that also. And then he goes on to say, but this was not to be. The army of Israel, though greatly outnumbered, destroyed the besieging armies and seized vast stretches of enemy-held territory. It was a clear act of God that drove the troops of the kingdom of Transjordan into a war of madness. He goes and explains how Jordan was not part of the war. They only went into the war because the Egyptians were saying, "Oh, we're beating them silly, right? Just join us and you'll get some of the spoils." The Egyptians were lying because after the first 5 hours of the war, they were already gone. Their entire air force was blown apart. But they lied to the Jordanians, and the Jordanians believed them and went into the war. And because they went into the war, we were able to capture the Kotel and Har Habayit. And then he goes in the last paragraph and he says, "The wondrous deliverance on the 28th of Iyar, the day of Jerusalem, and the days following," listen to these words, "transcends by far in scope and character many other historic events which gained a unique standing in the Jewish calendar." In other words, we have some holidays that are, celebrate certain things that happened to the Jewish people. This one transcends many of those holidays. And for some reason, there are still people who are not celebrating it, who do not recognize, do not acknowledge that there were unbelievable miracles here. Right after the war, 2 books came out, 2 very important books, diametrically opposed to each other. One was by the Satmar Rebbe. He wrote a sefer called Al Hagula Val Tmura, in which he basically says, I have the quote underneath that. I'm not going to read it inside, but it's there for you to read yourself. This is in the introduction to the book, where the person who's introducing the book is explaining how the Rebbe was talking, besides what he wrote in the book, how he was talking during that whole period of time, and how he said that it's clear to me that there were no miracles, and even if there were miracles, and even if there will be in the future miracles, it is clear to me that it was done by Satan. It is not God. This part I have to show you. Okay? It's the underline. Ki anisim alalu mekor shorsham me'asitra achra. Rachman on this side, right? The source of these miracles is from the sitra achra, which means the other side, right? The dark side, the evil side up in heaven. Ki efshar. It is impossible. She'aseh Hashem yitbarach nisim l'rishayim. It's impossible for God to do miracles by way of rishayim. O nisim she'yigremu li'tkarvut l'rishayim. Or it's impossible for God to do miracles that will cause people to get closer to rishayim. And therefore he says, the Zionists are rishayim. It's impossible that there could possibly be miracles by Hashem. So what are you going to say? There were seemingly miracles. That was the Sitra Achra. That was the evil forces, the Satan. Satan did the miracles to trick us, to make us believe that miracles were done. That's the Satmar Rebbe's opinion. Okay, that's his opinion. Okay, there are very few people who really agree with him on that, but there unfortunately are those who do. But the second sefer that came out, also around the same time, shortly after the war, was a sefer by Rav Menachem Mendel Kasher, a tremendous Talmud Chacham. He wrote a multi-volume set called Torah Shlema, in which he basically quotes every single midrash has ever said about every single pasuk, and he explains them. And it's like 40 some odd volumes. And I don't think they still print them. But I think some of them were only finished posthumously after he died. But what?
I think they're still doing it.
They're still working on it to finish his job that he never finished. Right. I think he got through Bamidbar or something like that, or up till Bamidbar. So he was a tremendous Talmud Chacham, and he wrote the exact opposite. He was living here, and he said, there is no doubt that there were miracles. And he says, how do I know that there were miracles? Because if you really want to know whether what happened before our very eyes was miraculous or a mirage, like the title of the shir goes, you can't ask people who have a predisposed opinion on this issue. You can't ask a Satmar Chassan, you can't ask a Merkaz Arav guy either, right? A Kippah Sruga, student of Rav Kook. Because we know what they'll say, we know what they'll say. The Satmar will say, it wasn't miraculous, and even if it was through Satan. And the Rav Kookniks will say this was the Geula. This was like, for sure, a very big part of the Geula. So who do you ask? You ask people who are unbiased, who have no pre-notions on about this issue. They've never thought about it. I.e. who? Number one, army generals. Army generals are the last people who would say that we don't know how this happened. This is clearly miraculous because we never expected it to happen this way, right? And that's what army generals were saying. Or secular journalists who were writing that like this was like biblical in its scope, or non-Jewish writers. It was the biggest thing of the time. Everyone was talking about how the small tiny Israeli army. You're thinking, don't think of the Israeli army in 1967 as the Israeli army in 2026. Okay, today we are literally one of the strongest armies in the world. Okay, and obviously we weren't bad in 1967. We didn't go and fight with bows and arrows. We obviously had some kind of weapons and airplanes and everything, but we were greatly outnumbered. And for it to have happened in 6 days, the whole world was wowed by what had happened. And therefore, he says, those are the people you have to ask or read what they wrote in order to know whether this was truly miraculous or not, right? Because they are not biased in their opinion. For example, he says also that all the Gedolim and the Admorim, the great Hasidic Rebbeim in Eretz Yisrael, and many in Chutz La'aretz too, acknowledge that there were miracles. By the way, it's not on your sheets. I just remembered, someone once sent me this. I don't have this book. It's a sefer called Kol Ram. It's about Rav Moshe Feinstein on the Chumash. And Rav Moshe writes in Parshat, not sure which parsha it is, it's the first volume. He writes, even when we see miracles, the Yetzer Hara often convinces us to forget what we saw and go back to our earlier delusions. For example, Rav Moshe Feinstein, no one will say he was a Zionist. For example, despite the countless miracles during Eretz Yisrael's 6-day war, many people were not inspired to improve religiously. Okay, his conclusion is, you see those miracles, you should realize Hashem is watching over his people. His conclusion wasn't, we should all move to Israel and be part of the Geula. Okay. But he called them miracles. He goes on to say, in our times, even though we have seen countless miracles in Eretz Yisrael, we still have not adequately strengthened our belief in Hashem's absolute omnipotence. So even Rav Moshe Feinstein said so. And I have on the bottom of the page, second to last source, Rav Shalom Noach Barzovsky, who was the Rebbe Mislonim, right, the Slonim Rebbe, the Nesivos Shalom, who wrote clearly also that there were unbelievable miracles and we have so much to thank Hashem for. Anu mechuyavim, start from the beginning. Lahakir b'nisim, we have to recognize the miracles. She'asa lanu HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'yamim ha'elu. Nisim giluyim, absolute clear miracles. Ve'erat panim, like a shining face. Hashem shown his face on us. Milafanav barach shemo lamo Yisrael. Ma shelo zachu lirot. Harbe asrot dorot. Many tens, we call it, let's say dozens of generations, not years. That means you're talking about hundreds of years. We haven't seen such a ha'arat panim, such a shining face from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ve'asur lanu liyot kofer b'tovato shel makom. It's forbidden for us to be ungrateful to Hashem for what He's done for us. Then he goes on to explain what the miracles were. You have to understand the Arabs wanted to literally push us into the sea and destroy and kill every single one of us. And also, he talks a lot about the fact that we got the Kotel back. We got not only Kotel, Kever Rachel, Chevron, Kever Ha'avot, right? We got all these holy places to the Jewish people. We got them back. We didn't have them before 1967. Quick, yeah.
Would you say that we really got it back if they controlled the Temple Mount?
The only reason they controlled the Temple Mount is because the religious were not enough involved to be able to change the decision of the secular government who gave the keys to the Waqf. If the religious Jews that come, and this is the story throughout Zionism, the religious have a lot of problems with Zionists, with the secular state and the secular Zionists, and the answer to every one of their complaints is simply, you're right, but why therefore weren't you there to make sure that didn't happen? The Zionists cut off the payout of the Taimani Jews when they came into Israel. You're right, and that was a terrible thing. But guess what? If hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Jews of the frum world would have come and would have been a majority, that never would have happened, correct? Same thing, 6-Day War. If we were involved, the religious world was involved, so we never would have given Harabite away to the Arabs. We would have said, sorry, you lost, goodbye, go somewhere else, go to Mecca. That's the answer to every single complaint that the Haredi world has about Zionism. If you really have a problem with it, so come and do something about it. Make a change. Do something. We need you. We need you to be involved and to make things better. We all want it better. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Oh, so there's I don't have it on the sheet, but there's a tshuva or an article by a Rav Saraya Diblitsky. I don't know much about him. I only know about this particular piece that he wrote. He was a student of the Chazon Ish that I know, and he was a recognized gadol in the Haredi world. And he wrote an article saying it's unbelievable that we're not thanking Hashem for the miracles that happened, that we're not involved in the discussion. We're just denying everything. We, meaning his world, the Haredi world. And he goes on to prove from sources, and one of the sources which I want to share with you is, he says, we find in history so many examples of holidays, semi-holidays, that were established for things, as I quoted before from Rav Eleo Kitov, no, it was from someone else, who was it? From the Admor, the Slonimer Rav, that there were so many things that happened that don't even come close to what happened in the 6-Day War and their holidays. So one of the things is the Chassam Sofer, right? The Khatam Sofer, who was, the Posek Gador, the greatest Posek of his generation. He originated, or his family originated, I think in where was it from again? A certain community, I don't remember now the names. A certain community where they had a minhag of making what's called a Purim Katan. A lot of people, a lot of communities have what's called a Purim de something. Purim de Frankfurt. I think this is the one that he was talking about. Purim of Frankfurt. Not that it was Purim, but it was a similar type of miracle as in the Purim story, and therefore they have a holiday on that. People, anybody who was a descendant of that community, will celebrate that day. So the Khatam Sofer writes that he celebrates Purim de Frankfurt just because he was, I think, not even his generation, the generation before was from Frankfurt, even though he himself lived in Pressburg for most of his life. But he celebrated it. Now, what was it all about? What was this great miracle that happened to the Jews in Frankfurt? You want to know what it was? There was a rumor that the Cossacks, or whatever their names are, the anti-Semites, were planning a pogrom against the Jews of Frankfurt. And the Jews were scared stiff because they didn't have anything, no way of protecting themselves. It was basically, they were at the whim of the attackers. And they were really besides themselves with fear. And the day came that supposedly they're coming to attack, and nothing happened. And they didn't attack. There was no attack. It was such a great simcha that they were saved from this supposed attack that was supposed to possibly take place, that they made that day into a Purim, which means no tachanun. I don't think they said Hallel, but no tachanun, no fasting. You should have a su'uda, just like on Purim, right? He says, are we being serious here? Here it wasn't just a rumor that maybe the Goyim want to kill us, and this unverifiable rumor. This was everyone knew. Nasser of Egypt announced on the radio, we are going to go into Israel and we're going to conquer the entire land and push the Jews into the sea and slaughter every one of them. And they had the weapons to do it. And yes, we were saved. We were saved in 6 days. You want to say miracle, not a miracle. I just heard unfortunately, a speech part of a speech by a certain rabbi, I won't give his name, who is very much aligned with Satmar philosophy, might himself be a Satmar Chassid, who just went on and on and on saying, all the experts of war knew that the Israelis were going to win. There was no miracles whatsoever. And he brings up certain sources and certain proofs from this general and that general who said that, no, it's clear that the Israelis are going to win this. Let's even say that there were some who said that. Clearly there were many who didn't. I don't know if you know this, but supposedly in West Point, which is the greatest academy of the Army Academy in America, they supposedly, at least for many years, I don't know if it's still true, they don't teach the 6-day war because there's nothing to learn from it, because it was just miraculous. So there are certainly others that don't agree with these that he's quoting, but forget about that. Let's even say he's correct that those who really, really knew that we were going to win the war. Okay, maybe. But was there a threat? Maybe we'd win the war, but maybe there will be tremendous casualties. They had a lot of planes and a lot of bombs and the ability to kill. Do you know what they did before the 6-day war? Do you know that they dug graves in parks all throughout the country in preparation for all the dead that there were going to be? So let's even say, Be'emet, certain people knew that we were going to win. So therefore, it's not a reason to celebrate? If they celebrated Purim to Frankfurt because of a rumor, here, it's a heck of a lot more than a rumor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved us. There's no question there was a tremendous salvation. We have to say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for this. So, a little bit of more direct Torah sources. So, look, it's obvious that the Satmar Rebbe was a tremendous Gaon Olam, knew Kol Torah Kula. No one's going to deny that. But Rav Menachem Mendel Kasher, the other book that I told you came out in after the 6-day war, heard about this opinion of there are some people who say that it's Satan, and he brought several sources which show so clearly that we don't say things like that. First of all, on the bottom of the first page, okay? You know the story of Eliyahu Hanavi with the Nevi'ei Habal, that whole showdown with Nevi'ei Habal in Malachim, Sefer Malachim. So whether you know it or not, we're supposed to just ignore that? That probably happens all the time, right? You just ignore it? Okay. I just don't know it. So, whatever it is, he challenged them. He said, okay, if Baal is really the god, so then offer up us an offering to him and see if your God accepts it. And of course it doesn't. They cut themselves and all day, all night, all day long they were trying to have their God come down in fire and burn up their sacrifice, and it didn't. And then Eliyahu comes and he tells them to douse it with water. He takes his sacrifice and there's water all over the place. They dug dishes. There's water all over the place. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Eliyahu Navi says, Aneni Hashem Aneni. And fire comes down, doesn't only burn up the sacrifice, burns up all the water around. Everything is charred to a crisp. So that's pretty darn good trick, right? Like everyone's going to now certainly serve Hashem, right? Unfortunately, that's not what happened. But the Gemara says, why this double lashon? Why did Eliyahu say Aneni Hashem Aneni? So look what it says in the Gemara on the bottom of the page. Aneni, the first Aneni is, I don't have underlined. The first Aneni is that you should answer me and bring fire down from the heavens to show them that you're the God. And look at the second one. Vaneni, underline, shetasiach da'atam, make them, lose their mind a little bit, that they shouldn't be thinking so deeply. Kedei shelo yomru ma'asek shafim heim, so that they shouldn't say, oh, this was just witchcraft. Yeah, Eliyahu, he's very good at magic, so that's why it worked. Meaning we see this attitude already in those days. You could see clear miracles, and you could say, it's Ma'asek Shafim. It's miracles. It's magic. It's not real miracle. Or look at the next source on the next side of the page. Without getting into the whole sugya, the Gemara there says at the very end, Man avid nisi, who does miracles? Kucha barichu. Only God does miracles. There's no other way to interpret a miracle. If a miracle happens, it has to be God. Very much against the opinion that says there could be such a thing as a miracle, but it wasn't done by God. God would never do such a miracle. Only Satan or the Sitra Achra, the other side, the evil side, would do it to trick Am Yisrael, right? And then there's another source, the third source on the page, Gemara in Me'ilah. Tells a beautiful story. We just had Lag BaOmer, right? Last week, Lag BaOmer, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So this is the story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that the Romans made a certain decree that the Jewish people can't keep Torah, can't do Brit Milah, can't go to the mikvah, Taharat HaMishpacha, and maybe Shabbos also, I don't remember. A few very harsh decrees that the Jewish people are not allowed to do Torah and Mitzvot. So the rabbis got together and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to annul this decree? And they said, you know what, let's send Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, because he's ragil, he is accustomed to having miracles done for him. We don't know what's going to happen, but he's a good bet. He's a surefire bet that if we send Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, good things will happen. So they sent Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's a whole story, a whole long Gemara, but anyway, we're just going to tell the basic story. They send Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and to go and speak to the king, to go to the Caesar or whoever it was, to try to annul this decree. They're almost there, and a demon whose name was Tamalion, if I'm not mistaken, Tamalion, comes over to them, to this group of rabbis who are on their way to the main city, and he says to them, do you want me to help you guys? A demon. You know what demons are? Okay, I don't know what demons are either, but whatever. Some kind of a spiritual, semi-spiritual being, not exactly, they're not angels, they're demons. Like the word in English also, demons does not have a very positive connotation. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai started crying, and he said, look what happened to Hagar HaMitzrit, right? Avram's wife. She saw 3 angels. 3 angels came to her, with the whole story with Ishmael when Avram kicked them out of the house. It says 3 times that the angel came. 3 times to her. And me, an actual descendant of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, All I get is this lousy demon to help me out. And then look what he says. Just one underline. After he cries and laments the fact that he's not even on the level of Hagar HaMitzrit, he says, Yavo Hanes Mikol Makom. But nonetheless, let the miracle come from wherever it comes. We need a miracle now. And if it has to be a demon, let it be a demon. And then the story goes on to say, they go into the they go into the city, and this demon had come before them and entered the body of the daughter of the king, the princess, and she's going crazy. And she was possessed by this demon. And the whole royal family, the whole royal court is going crazy. What are we going to do? The princess is possessed. What are we? And she was like going crazy. In walks Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the rest of the rabbis. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai sees what's happening. He says, Tamal Yon, get out of there. Leave her body. And he leaves, and she returns back to normal. And the rabbis say, and the king says, whatever you want. I'm going to open up my storehouse, my treasure house for you. You go in, take whatever you want. And in the treasure house is also where all the decrees are. He goes in, takes the evil decree, rips it up, and that's it. End of story. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai understood that when it comes to nisim, we don't choose who does the nes. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu does the nes for us, we might not be worthy to have the nes done in the most unbelievable way. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu still wants to save the Jewish people. And therefore, he's going to bring a miracle. And if he does bring a miracle, you can be rest assured that it's Hashem doing it and not anybody else. Maybe the agent, the shaliach that he's using is somebody who we don't really, we'd rather have someone better. But it doesn't matter. It's still a nes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a lot more. But I'm a little bit strapped for time. So I want to share with you one other idea, which I think is a very important idea related to this whole thing. And that is an idea from Rav Chaim Drukman. If you know Rav Drukman, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivat Oretz Zion, correct. Oretz Zion, one of the Hesder Yeshiva, died a few years ago. He wrote an unbelievable sefer called Kima Kima, which has been translated into English. That's one of the only really amazing religious Zionist books that I did not have the schus to translate. It was just done already, so I couldn't do it. And in it, he has so many beautiful ideas, so many things that are not even in all my books. But anyway, this is one of them. He says, we say every holiday and every Shabbos, we say Shir HaMalot. Shir HaMalot, B'shuv Hashem et Shivat Zion, Hayinu Kecholmim, we will be like dreamers. So what exactly does it mean that we will be like dreamers? What does it mean to be like a dreamer? So some say what it means. Some say what it means is that when it comes, it'll be like a dream. Like, it'll be like, wow, this is so amazing. It's as if, sometimes when something happens, like you don't even believe, you have to pinch yourself. Am I alive? Am I actually living this? That's what it means. Some say it'll be we'll be like dreamers, meaning we will see the 2,000 years of galut that we just unfortunately have to go through as a bad dream. And now everything's Baruch Hashem going to be better. And he brings a whole bunch of different mefarshim on this question of what does it mean, Hayinu Kecholmim, and then he gives his own pshat. And he says it's like somebody who is in the middle of a class, and he's sitting in a class, and he's daydreaming. His eyes are open, he is not asleep, but he's also not listening to what the teacher is saying. He's in a dream world. He's not really hopping what's going on because he's thinking about other things. Similarly, when the Geula comes, there are certainly going to be some Jews that are going to be kecholmim. They're going to be like dreamers. They're going to be like, not really recognizing what's going on and just like being in their own little world, their own little bubble, thinking that, nothing special is happening because he's too busy, dreaming about whatever he's dreaming about. And And we see it today. And he gives the following mashal. He says there was once a very poor person, and he went to a rich guy, and he says, listen, he gives him a whole sob story about how he fell into hard times, and he's unable to make ends meet, and all he needs is a loan to be able to start again, start a business, and to be able to make a parnasa, and please, can you help me? So the rich guy says to me, says, you know what? I really see that you're sincere, and that you're not just asking for a handout, you're asking for to help you out. No problem. I don't have my checkbook on me. Come to my office tomorrow morning, and I'll write you a check. Tomorrow morning comes. Guy doesn't show up. And he meets him somewhere in the street later on in the week. And the guy, the poor person goes through the whole spiel again. Oh, can you help me? I fell into hard times. I barely can make ends meet. All I need is a little loan so I can start my own business. And the rich guy is like, maybe he had amnesia, maybe he forgot. Okay, he says, listen, I already told you this, but tomorrow morning, if you come to my office, I'll write you a check. Same thing happens. The next day comes. He doesn't show up. And then a third time, knocked down. Sorry. A third time comes, and he meets him again in the middle of the street. And this time the guy says, what's wrong with you? Are you even listening to the words you're saying? Do you really believe the words you're saying? Because if you believe them, I said that I'm going to help you. But you have to do something. All I'm asking you is to come to my office, and you're not doing it. So obviously you don't mean what you're actually saying. So the Chafetz Chaim is actually a mashal of the Chafetz Chaim. And the Chafetz Chaim applies it to Talmud Torah. He says, we say every day in our davening, we say, V'tein chalkeinu b'toratecha, atachonenu l'adam dat, give us knowledge, give us the ability to learn Torah. And then right after davening, what do? We close the siddur, take off our tefillin quickly, and we run and we do a million other things except to sit down and open a sefer, right? So the point is, we don't really mean. Do we really mean what we're saying? That we're asking to be given knowledge, to be given the ability to learn Torah? You also have to do something for it. You have to sit and learn. If you sit and learn, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help you out, and he'll give you more knowledge, more ability to learn. Rav Lichtman took it in terms of the Geula also. The same thing with Geula. We've been davening for 2,000 years for the Geula. And when the Geula finally is here, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is moving heaven and earth so that the Jewish people are returning back to Eretz Yisrael, and the state of Israel, the land of Israel is being built up, and we're a strong economy. We're a better economy than even America is these days. And so many unbelievable things, and Jews are just, as we said, Hayinu kecholim. They're in dream world. They're simply in a dream world. They're not recognizing it for what it is. And that's the challenge of our generation, to see things like the 6-Day War, and like Yom Ha'atzmaut, and everything, and what just happened a few months ago. The fact that we are able to go into Iran and take out all of their air defense systems and basically just freely go and bomb wherever we want. Okay, I know the war's not over and we didn't beat them totally, but I mean the miracles, and that all their missiles to us only, Baruch Hashem, and unfortunately some people were killed, but in terms of the numbers of how many could have been killed, it's not even compared. I mean, we're seeing miracles in our own days, but we're just in a dream world. We're just thinking of something else. We're dreaming about something else. We're not really understanding that Hashem is redeeming the Jewish people. And the real lesson is that we have to be part of it. We can't just stand on the sidelines and say, thank you, Hashem. Yeah, I'll give you Hallel on Yom Ha'atzmaut and on Yom Yerushalayim, and that's it, but I'll still remain living in Chutz La'aretz. No, Hashem wants his people back in the land. He wants us back in Eretz Yisrael. That's why he's doing this. That's why for the last 1,000, the famous mashal of the person who's drowning, and he cries out to Hashem, or it's not drowning, there's a big flood, so he goes up to the second floor of his house, and then the waters rise, and he goes up to the roof, and the waters rise, and each time he says, Hashem, save me, and then a boat passes by, and he said, come on, jump on, and he says, no, Hashem's going to save me, and then it gets even higher, and he's holding onto a plank of wood, and a helicopter comes and drops its ladder, and says, come on, come aboard. He says, no, Hashem's going to save me, and then eventually drowns and dies, and then he goes up to heaven, and God says, he says to God, why didn't you help me? I had such faith in you. I totally trusted that you were going to save me. And Hashem said, who do you think sent the boat and the helicopter? I mean, Hashem works in those ways. Who do you think has been moving heaven and earth to such a degree that the Jewish people are back in the land of Israel after 2,000 years of exile? I mean, to just ignore it is I think is a terrible sin, and is something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not forgive us for. We have to say thank you and mean what we say and do something about it. I'm going to end there. Just going to quickly introduce my books. I have some very important books. Most of them are translations of other books, except for two of them. I'll leave this one for last because this one's the easiest to explain. Eretz Yisrael in the Parsha. It's exactly what it sounds like. Eretz Yisrael is mentioned in every single Parsha in the Chumash. I didn't make that up. Several Gedolim said that, and I took it and I ran with it. And I wrote articles for different websites, and eventually I took all my articles and I put it together in book form, and it is a very, very inspirational and highly acclaimed. People love it. People read it religiously at every single meal at their house. People actually really love this sefer, Baruch Hashem. And it only costs 40 shekels. It's a pretty big book, and I am very one of my points is to make sure to make my books as affordable as possible so that people can afford it. Guys like you can afford it and don't have to turn it down and say, I can't afford that. So that's number one, Eretz Yisrael in the Parsha. Question of redemption. All the questions that people who oppose the Zionist movement, all the classic questions of, do we have any prophets who can affirm that this is the beginning of the final redemption? How can we recite Hallel over the state of Israel when thousands of Jews do not even know how to recite the Shema? So the author of this book got all these questions when he was on Shlichut, and he decided to just put all the questions together and give very simple, straightforward, to the point answers based on sources that everyone agrees with. Gemaras, Rishonim, Achronim, Halachas Svarim. Nothing, he does mention Rav Kook a little bit because he is a student of a student of a student, but he still mainly quotes sources that everyone has to agree with. It's a tremendous sefer. A lot of people have really, in fact, this coming Sunday, I am invited to a podcast called Judaism Demystified. I don't know if anybody's ever heard that. Anyway, I never heard of it until they invited me to go on their show. But they have a lot of amazing interviews with some pretty big names. I don't know why they called me, but anyway. So I'm invited to speak specifically about this book, because the people who run the podcast really love this sefer and they want to talk to me about it. Okay. Rise from the Dust, Tzvi Galat, the author of this book, was a typical American kid, born and bred in Brooklyn, New York, made Aliyah in the middle of high school, then went to yeshiva at Merkaz Arav, where he was learning up a storm. One Shabbat evening, they went to Hebron for Shabbat. That was in the very beginning, in the 1980s.
But before the issue started, they were...
No, it started a little bit, right? Maybe not the yeshuv, but Beit Hadassah.
10 women were...
Beit Hadassah, correct. Beit Hadassah. And they davened Kabbalat Shabbat on Friday night, and on their way back, Arab terrorists opened fire on them and killed 6 young men. If you go to Hebron today, you'll see that there's a building called Beit HaShisha, which is named after these 6 young men. One of them was Tzvi Galat. After he was killed, his friends went through his writing, went through his stuff, and found that this 20-year-old American kid had written a sefer that to this day is a classic in religious Zionist thought. The first half of the book goes through the hashkafa, showing that we've always made the same mistake of rejecting Eretz Yisrael, starting even before this, but certainly starting with the Miraglim, where Hashem told us to go into Eretz Yisrael and we rejected it. And throughout history, he shows that that is our Achilles heel. That is what we keep on getting wrong. And unfortunately, we're living in the same thing. We're living through the same thing where Jews just don't want to come and take part in Eretz Yisrael. So anyway, that's the first part. And the second half of the book is the halachic discussion about whether it's a mitzvah b'zman hazeh to live in Eretz Yisrael. A 20-year-old kid, anyone here 20? Close to it, 19, right? You're almost that age. This kid wrote a sefer that like 50-year-olds couldn't write, because he just quoted sources that I'd never heard of. He was so into this topic that he really, really did a tremendous job. It's an unbelievable book. This was also only 20 shekel. Did I mention this is 20 shekel? 40, 20, 20. Drop in the ocean. Drop in the ocean. This is a course that I gave in many different yeshivot and seminaries over the years. A full year course on the importance of living in Israel from the sources. And someone asked me to put it into book form and make it into a daily dose. So that's what I did. 365 sources on the importance of living in Eretz Yisrael. This is the first year that I'm selling it as a small paperback book. It used to be much bigger and hardcover, and it's, first of all, more expensive. It's more expensive to produce. And it's heavier, and people had a hard time taking it home. So I realized that I have to shrink it so that people will buy it. And it's only cost 20 shekel. Okay? These books are they're dirt cheap. 40, 20, 20, 20. Now, one more before we get to the most important one, and that is Ayel Shachar. This is a student of Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook, which is the son of Rav Kook, the Rav Kook. And he is one of the biggest experts on Rav Kook's writings. But the book is not only Rav Kook. The book is all about the dawn of redemption, about Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel, and all the different wars we've gone through, and all the sources on the importance of Eretz Yisrael, the Geula, Achdut Yisrael, the importance of being one and loving your fellow Jews, and what exactly our tafkid in this world is. It's a very important hashkafic sefer, and I very highly recommend it. 30 shekel. That's all it is, hardcover, and it's only 30 shekel. And finally, Ema Banim Smecha. If anybody has not heard of this sefer before, that's a terrible thing. It really is. Everybody Ema Banim Smecha. Rabbi Sachar Shlomo Tachtal. This rabbi was one of the Gedolei Hador in Europe prior to the Holocaust. He already wrote 3 volumes when the Holocaust started. 3 volumes of Sheilot Teshuvot. Okay? You don't do that unless you're a Gadol Hador and people are asking you questions. He was one of the Gedolei Hador, and he was also vehemently anti-Zionistic. He learned under the Munkach Rebbe. We spoke about Satmar before. Munkach and Satmar are basically the same hashkafa. Okay, vehement anti-Zionism, and he believed what his Rebbe taught him until the Holocaust came. The Holocaust happened, and he describes how he hid out in an attic and he was able to see what was going on. And he saw his whole yeshiva, he had a yeshiva, his whole community was the rub of a big community in Hungary. They were all being shipped off, and he never saw them again. They were all murdered. And he knew, of course, what was happening, more or less, what was happening in Europe. And he said, I have to figure out why this is happening. I can't give shir anymore. There's no one to give shir to. I can't paskin shilas. There's no one asking me shilas. So therefore, I have to figure out why Hashem is doing this to the Jewish people. And while hiding from the Nazis, kimat without svarim, he wrote the most important book ever written on the topic, the most inspirational and heavy in a sense of really you see the blood, sweat, and tears coming out in every word, because he's running from the Nazis while he's writing this. He's pleading to his fellow Jews. He's saying, come back to Eretz Yisrael. It's time to come. Hashem is telling us that we were mistaken. And he admits, by the way, he said, why did I believe otherwise before? Because I never really looked into the issue. I simply trusted my Rabbeim. My Rabbeim said that it's bad, and therefore I said it's bad. I had much more important things to do. I had to paskin shilas. I didn't have time to really look into the whole sugya. But now that I have nothing else to do, he looked into the sugya in his mind, going through all the sources, and he realized that he was mistaken, and all those who opposed the Zionist movement were mistaken. And he calls for the Jewish people to come back as soon as they can to Eretz Yisrael. It's an unbelievable sefer. This one is heavily sponsored and therefore only costs 10 shekel. No one should leave this room without a copy of it. 10 shekel, okay? So you'll buy one less iced coffee, okay? You'll be better off for it, okay? 10 shekel. Again, 10, 20, 20, 20, 30, and 40. So please take this opportunity to have the sources, the resources to educate yourself on this very important mitzvah. Shkoyach.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh.